Beyond immediate environmental impacts, the illegal trade in natural resources is depriving developing economies of billions of dollars in lost revenues, just to fill the pockets of criminals. Sustainable development, livelihoods, good governance, and the rule of law are all being threatened as significant sums of money are flowing to militias and terrorist groups. Wildlife crime is the fourth largest illegal activity in the world, after drug trafficking, counterfeiting, and human trafficking, with an annual turnover of at least $19 billion US. It is decimating Africa's iconic species of elephant, rhino, lion, and leopard, and threatening the very existence of Africa's protected areas, where tourism is a major GDP contributor. Every day, rangers risk their lives combating wildlife crime, and over 1,000 rangers have lost their lives in the past 10 years. The number of black rhino in Africa is estimated at 5,000 individuals, and that of white rhino at 20,000. Organized syndicates have caused poaching to rise from 13 rhino in 2007 to over 1,000 in 2013. Africa is now losing 3 rhino per day.
The possibility that these poachers can finish our rhinos is very big. That's why everybody should join in this war fighting against saving the rhinos.
Peace Parks Foundation was founded by Nelson Mandela, Dr. Anton Rupert, and Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands in 1997.
Anton Rupert and Prince Bernhard have sent me to various places, and I've put aside everything because it is important if various countries across boundaries work together, that unites those countries, and the boundaries become something unimportant.
Given the transnational nature of wildlife crime, the region's peace parks are playing a crucial role in combating it, as countries jointly counter the onslaught across international borders and work towards harmonizing policies and legislation.
That's why we are trying to join our effort to make sure that we combat as one group against these poaching activities.
In February 2014, the postcode lotteries awarded $21 million to Peace Parks Foundation and WWF to save Africa's rhino from extinction. The funding is supporting a multi-pronged program: devaluing the horn of live rhino, increasing the protection and security of rhino populations, supporting wildlife veterinary surgeons to treat injured rhino and care for rhino orphans, using technology such as night vision equipment, drones, and improved field communications, implementing counter-trafficking actions, launching an extensive international communications campaign to reduce the demand, and implementing community awareness projects.
The communities are the first line of defense. We just have to keep on reminding them how important it is to save the rhinos.
Along with protecting rhino, combating international crime around the smuggling of their horns is essential. WWF Netherlands is establishing an independent wildlife justice commission that will collect evidence, prepare legal cases, and coordinate political lobbying and public pressure to stop wildlife crime. Rhino have walked the earth for millennia. They are now facing extinction. It is up to us to save them for future generations.
There is no way in which we are going to allow this rhino to be extinct on our watch. We are definitely not going to give up this war until we've won it.
My opening remarks are very brief. The Wild Foundation was founded, as many of you know, by Ian Player. a South African who worked for 40 years in the bush with a black man during apartheid, an old Zulu. Together they led the team that saved the white rhino from extinction. Part of that strategy was to spread out the population. One of the very first places after they developed the translocation techniques that are still being used today, as Steve knows, one of the first places they took rhino outside of the country was to Mozambique, to the Maputo Special Reserve. During the war, that small population was extirpated. Ian often told me when I first went to be with him and to work with him that he was one of the few wildlife managers who saved a large mammal from extinction and then watched it go locally extinct for a second time. We're at that place again. That's what we're here about today. We all love elephants. But for every rhino killed, it's the equivalent of 30 elephants. Americans haven't been aware of this. So we're going to focus on this prehistoric beast today. Just as Ian Player and his old Zulu pioneered multiracial environmental education during apartheid by taking multiracial groups into the wilderness, right next door, there was a war going on. Our distinguished guest today, President Chisano, was one of the senior leaders of the resistance, fighting for many years. When they returned to their country and they gained power, Samora Machel, as many of you know, was assassinated. This man stepped forward and was the second president of Mozambique for 7 years. He's done many remarkable things. Right now, he's on a crusade for people and wildlife together, working with the Peace Parks Foundation. But one small final story before I ask our guest to give some brief remarks, is that not only was he a freedom fighter, he is still a freedom fighter. He's fighting for people and nature, both inside and outside. Here's a man who is a meditator. He had his generals learn meditation. He introduced meditation centers for street children in Mozambique. You don't find many leaders in any country, in any continent, doing things like that. Please join me in welcoming.
Thank you very much for your introduction and for the introduction of my whole delegation. We are a multiple delegation. Normally we say a delegation from Mozambique. We would rather call it a delegation from Southern Africa, because I am the chairman of the Joaquim Chissano Foundation, which deals with peace primarily in its all large sense. That's why I meditate, because meditating is to try to be in peace with yourself. And so the peace starting from us. And this is what Joaquim Chissano Foundation is all about. Be in peace with yourself and be in peace with your neighbor and be in peace with the environment. This is the philosophy of Joaquim Chissano Foundation. That's why we are interested in conservation. And yesterday we came, in a meeting which we had, we came up with another view that was about restoration. Because from many years, maybe millennia, we have been destroying the nature. And we have to now think about restoring it. I know that in America you have done a lot of restoration. That's why when we travel by train like we did today or yesterday by road, we want to see the farms. We cannot see them because you have all these walls of trees and so forth. You are trying to restore the nature. Of course, we still have a lot to do because, well, we are late. We cannot restore the dinosaurs. Cannot restore the dinosaurs. But let us try to restore the lions which are being killed, the leopards which are being killed, the turtles in the sea, the dugong in the sea, because we still have some. And most of all, let us try to preserve the few rhinos which we have, the few elephants which we have, because there are already few in the world. It's not only that it's a nice thing to see. We go pay tickets in the planes to go and see an elephant. And we think that that is all. But we have to preserve these animals because they are part of us. They are part of our ecology. It's a part of our environment. They are part of our life. That's why by embracing this fight to preserve, to restore, to avoid this crime against nature, we are doing something to preserve humanity. That's why I'm very glad to see many of you here in this room. Because sometimes when you speak about human rights, you don't focus on this point of the relation between the human being and the animals. So I'm glad that you are here because you care for humanity, you care for the preservation of the best of the species, which is mankind, so women and men. Without a harmonious environment, you will not have an harmonious life. You need this environment to live. So God has created all these creatures, not by chance. And so we are spoiling a wonderful job which God did to preserve an equilibrium. He knows why he put the snakes there and the rats there and the insects there. All these things have got a role to play. You know this better than me. So we have to know. I was eating beef here because, well, we have to eat the beef. But God didn't say eat the lion. We can eat some of the snakes, like python, okay? But you eat them in a sustainable manner, as the lion has to eat zebra in a sustainable manner. Actually, the animals do eat each other, but in a sustainable manner. They attack only when they have to eat. But we attack because we want to sell the horn, we want to sell the skin, we want to hang the skin in our home, all these things. It's cruel. It's cruel against nature. We depleted the forests because we want to not only to heat our rooms, but because we want a nice floor, and we don't measure how much we take, and we need it. We need it. So we take the habitat of the animals away. So when we speak about protecting the animals, we speak about a more comprehensive thing. We are speaking about this piece which I spoke about earlier. So the Peace Park Foundation, the film has shown you how it started. The idea started in 1990. It materialized with Mandela and Prince Bernard and Rupert later on, but it started in 1990 with Rupert and myself. And because we want to link this park of Kruger Park and Limpopo Park in Mozambique and other parks like Banyin and Zinave. But now, as you see on the map, it has grown very, very, very big. Our aim is to complete the whole of Southern Africa, but we are being now contacted by countries up in the West who wanted to cooperate with the Peace Park Foundation. The Joaquin Chissano Foundation, as I said, it was created for safeguarding and promoting peace in all its angles. But today, since this year, we are focusing on the protection of elephant and the rhino. It's very important that if we succeed in our endeavor, it means that we are going to save lives of innocent people, because the organized crime is recruiting a lot of young people. Young people are being killed. You heard here they were speaking about rangers who were killed. But then you have to speak about who were killed also by the rangers. So you sum this a lot of lives. And we have to save the lives of these people. We are we have tried, we have started a program of intelligence work in the parks to try and see how the organized crime operates, at least in our area, but also to understand the link which they have with the masters, those who create it, who are far away. You will find them in many countries, including China, Vietnam, but who knows, United States. Who buys all these things that we don't know where they are. So the intelligence has to work very, very hard to discover all of those things. And so the Joaquin Chissano Foundation is working together with the government and with the PPF in this protection of rhino and elephant primarily. Because you heard the film say three rhinos per day are being lost. Elephants, it's more than that, maybe 4 to 5. But sometimes we don't speak much of this because we still, fortunately, have more elephants than rhinos. So the priority today is a rhino, which exists not in Mozambique, but because in Mozambique the war has killed lots of animals and lots of elephants. You know that we had 16 years of war. And the horns of rhino, the ivory of elephants, most part of it was transported to South African apartheid regime, which made lots of money of it. And unfortunately, this war was ignored, or countries like your country took the wrong sides at the beginning. And that's why we don't have rhinos in Mozambique. But But as I said, we are busy to restore. We have to restore this. It was a waste, we have to restore. Well, in this intelligence work, we count more with the communities because the youth which are being killed, they are recruited among the communities. And the more animals are being killed without a given order or discipline, the less possibility the people will have even to hunt for their food, because there will be no animals later. So the relationship between the work which we are doing with the protection of animals and what we have to do in protection and the development of the communities is a tight relationship. We cannot separate it. So we have to involve. I don't want to utilize the word we use the communities, because we should not use them. They must own this process of preserving what is theirs. The nature belongs to the communities. And so the empowerment of the communities to be involved and to educate their own children not to go through this crime. Because at the beginning they don't realize that it's a crime. Why a crime? Well, we're killing a rhino in order to make money. It's very easy. So we have to educate these people. Well, I will not speak much because time is not there, and we convene that we will be ready to answer to questions, because I'm speaking like this because I don't know what is the interest of each one of you in all this. I know one interest is that you want the good for the humanity. You want the good for my people, for the South African people, Botswana people, and so on. What we are going to discuss in how, what is your role, and so on. But Vance mentioned a big man, a conservationist, young player. The young player is a South African conservationist. And I came across a phrase of him which may summarize all what I tried to tell you with many, many words. Because it seems that we are desperate. The organized crime is very strong. They have got all means to attack. These people are well trained and well equipped, well financed. So a country like Mozambique may say, well, what can we do against them? But, well, young player came with this phrase which I'm going to quote. He says, what is happening to the rhino is symptomatic of what is happening to the environment as a whole. By saving the rhino, we are saving ourselves. And if we are not interested in saving ourselves, what are we doing here?
Thank you very much for addressing you. It's really a privilege. I always start off with, we've been traveling with President Chisano together for the past 4 years through the world, telling the Peace Park story, which I think is a remarkable story. If you start analyzing and start understanding what has happened in the region, if you look at that map there, you'll see that big red block in the middle and those red boxes. It essentially means that presidents of those countries have agreed to cooperate across international boundaries and agreed to the concept of ecosystem management, understanding the importance of ecosystem management. And that's the foundation of all of us. If we don't have a healthy ecosystem, we won't have people anymore in a short while. But there's a story to that, and I think today is about rhinos, so we're not going to focus a lot about that Vance mentioned it's not that well known in America, the plight of the rhino, and I think probably I'm speaking to an informed audience here. But for me it's an important question. Do you really understand the crisis that we are in? And that's what we are trying to advocate now and trying to mobilize and rally support. You saw that video. We got a support of $21 million from a private donor. This is the first grant that South Africa and Mozambique ever received of this scale, which is shocking if you think about it, because we need about 4 or 5 times more immediately. Right now, that's the need. And we are, at the moment, just playing catch-up to try and save the rhino. Don't want to be depressing, but and that's why I'm so glad about the Wildlife Preservation Initiative that President Chissano launched in Mozambique, because 80% of the people poaching rhino in Kruger Park originates from Mozambique. And they use the border to come over and go back. At the same time, 80% of the elephants being poached in Nyasa Game Reserve, right in the north of Mozambique, is being done from people coming from Tanzania into Mozambique. So criminals have quite quickly figured out that your borders, your boundaries are your soft spots, and they abuse that, they use that. Governments do not have an ability to act quickly. This peace box concept has been going for 15 years, 17 years, and only now in 3 of them, of the 18, are we allowed cross-border movement of staff and joint patrols. So it took a long, long time. But eventually, hopefully, you'll be able to do that in all of those reserves. But understanding what's happening in Kruger Park, South Africa is the custodian of about 82% of the world's remaining rhino, black and white. Essentially, safeguarding rhino for the rest of the world. There's about 3,000 in India, and in Jakarta and Sumatra there's 150 rhinos. So rhinos are essentially, there's 9 countries in Africa with rhino left, and South Africa by far got about 20,000 rhino left. But we are losing, conservatively now, this year we'll probably go to 1,500 rhino that we'll lose this year. So we've reached the tipping point. More rhino are being killed than being born. And from there it's downhill very quickly, because it's an exponential growth. And to give you an idea, in the Kruger Park, like I said, next to Limpopo Park and Mozambique, 2 years ago, we were aware of, in this particular little village called Masinjir, 3 poaching bosses. Now, a poaching boss is somebody that will recruit poachers to go, they'll give them a gun and some resources, and they'll go into Kruger Park and they'll shoot a rhino. And there were 3 poaching bosses that we knew about, and each of them had about 2 to 3 teams that worked for them, of between 3 and 6 or 7 people. 2 years later, in that same village, we are aware of 20 poaching bosses. And the groups are bigger. They're between 3 and 12 people, and that's in one village. If you break it down, you're looking at 50 poachers that made a living from this to 500 in 2 years. And we estimate that that's about 1/3 of what is happening. So at every single day in Kruger Park, you'll have 30 different groups of armed poachers going into Kruger Park to try and kill rhino. Every single day. And every single day in Kruger, we lose 3 rhino. So, and Kruger Park is throwing millions into trying to stop this. But they're not getting anywhere. And they're not getting anywhere because they're not cooperating sufficiently internationally and nationally and across the border regionally. And I think that's why President Chissano's initiative is so important, where for the first time, Mozambique is also saying, hey, but we are also concerned about our rhino, and we also want to make a difference. And I think these type of stories are the stories of hope for us, that there are individuals that understand the plight, that has a voice, that can stand on any platform, and specifically in Mozambique, and really mobilize the political will, because that's what's lacking, is political will in Southern Africa and the rest of the world. Because it's not only here, it's also on the demand side. And if you go to Vietnam, Laos, Malaysia, Cambodia, Myanmar, Jakarta, if you talk to the guys from Traffic that monitor the illicit trafficking of wildlife products, they're aware of about 75% of illicit wildlife products going into those countries, and going from those countries to America, reptiles, for example, and many countries in Europe. They are aware of 75% of those consignments. They effectively stop between 1 and 3% of all of those consignments because of corruption. So they're aware of it, but they cannot do much about it. People are untouchable. So it's a very bleak story in a certain sense, that there's serious organized criminal syndicates that's not going to give this up until the last rhino or elephant or any other high-value species is decimated. And what we need to counter that is partnerships, is interdependence, is cooperation. And that's essentially why we are here, is to build those bridges with you, to learn what can we do. You've got vast experiences. We're learning a lot every day to really try and turn this thing around as soon as possible, before it's too late. So I think that's our message, and our message is also not the one of depression, and it's not, we're not going to win this. We are going to win this. We're not maybe not going to win this tomorrow, but we certainly will. Certainly start seeing some trends and some innovation coming to the table, to the field, that's showing some positive indications. And based on that, we probably see a positive trend in the next 2 to 3 years, probably more realistic 2 years. But with your help and support, we can possibly quicken that pace of turnaround. And that's, like I said, not only South Africa, that is the whole of Africa. And that's not only rhino. This is just a ambassador, because they are really in trouble. This is pretty much most of the high-value species in the wild today. So it's a very difficult, challenging time that we are in. But with every crisis, there's also opportunity, and I think that's what we're looking for. Thank you very much.
Today we heard the President of the United States at the UN talk about the danger, not just in the Middle East, but in the whole world, of terrorism. Will you explain in more detail what you did explain the other night about the linkage between poachers and traffickers of animals and the funding of international terrorism that should get everybody's attention, not just people who love and save animals?
You see all this terrorism around the world, but particularly in Africa. And you ask yourselves, where did they bring the money from? You remember I made an allusion, maybe the other day I didn't touch on that point, but you remember that there was war in Angola. There was war in Mozambique. And what we have in our heads is that the apartheid regime was financing that. But what we don't know, is that they have been piling tons and tons of ivory and of rhino horns, which was compensating for the money which they were financing UNITA with. They were financing Renamo with. It's not a secret that an Antonov plane, when it was taking off from one place in Angola, south of Angola, fell down. The ivory belonged to a very important Portuguese person, very important in Portugal. And I will not mention the name. Those who know the story will know. But it was a scandal. And it was carrying ivory because UNITA was working for them, killing the elephants, the animals, and so on. But this is not over. Even today in Somalia, we're speaking about bombing in Nairobi, bombing in Dar es Salaam against the American embassies and so on. Where did they find the money from? These movements of terrorists in Somalia, who is financing them? The money comes from our bushes, comes from our environment. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. What is happening is we watch people depleting in the nature to fuel wars, and that's why we said, well, to succeed in this conservation battle, it means to safeguard peace, to safeguard humanity. That's why I keep on repeating, because we can see this relation. You see that terrorism is not diversity with all this easy money. It's a crime like the others. Yeah? Those who smuggle women for prostitution or children, they're abducting children, they are doing exactly the same which they are doing with the animals. And the money is the same. It's a dirty money. The money laundering is being done for this kind of money with drugs, ivory or drugs or horn of it's the same reasons, cultural reasons. Men want to be more powerful, and so the horn, and so on and so on. The same reasons. So the crime is related with the terrorism. These are people in Nigeria abducting these girls. It's for the same reasons. So we have to have a comprehensive struggle against this evil.
Thank you. Mark Devin from the U.S. Water Partnership. I'd like to thank everyone for your very important work that you're committed on this very important issue. So my question is on, a lot of the speakers spoke about a kind of systemic approach to the solution and to this issue. Could you describe and tell more about what type of partners are you looking for, and maybe describe your ideal? As we talk about public-private partnerships, we finding in the water sector very similar kind of ways of building a big tent approach to these issues, and just seeing ways that perhaps we could help from our sectors outside of what you're doing, and just like to hear more on how we can, facilitate and help your work.
What I said is we need a multi-pronged approach here, and one of the things that's our biggest challenge is the moment the ivory or a rhino horn or whatever product leaves the shores of Africa, it goes into a big void somewhere else. Then there's somebody else and other entities, and we're trying to work with them closer now, and we've only become involved in this quite recently. The pressure socially on using these products is probably the most important thing that one can do in the long term. And we've seen it, for example, with the usage of ivory in Japan 20 years ago. Everybody in Japan used to use this seal. What do they call it? Anko. They don't do that anymore because it's become socially unacceptable. The long-term solution for usage of wildlife crime is that it must become socially unacceptable to society. And I think we're trying to do and deal with things that's in our control in Africa. So whatever intervention you do, you try to make sure that you are at least to some regard assured of an outcome or a result. The utilization of these products, which is essentially for rhino horn now, showing off to your friend how you can afford to use rhino horn as a hangover cure, is absolutely unacceptable, but that is now acceptable at this very moment in Vietnam. And I think if you say where can private sector and everybody partner, is exactly there, is to help us to mobilize support that the usage of these products is becomes socially unacceptable. And it's not only there, huh? We're not pointing fingers. A lot of, let's talk of lizards. The two, apart from Southeast Asia where lizards are being exported as pets, and is Germany and the Netherlands. The two biggest products. And the third one, guess where is that? Here. So it's not only there and them, and it's here, right here as well. The usage of these animals, wildlife products, and sometimes it's just because of purely being uninformed. So I think if I can say where and how that one can do that, I think US has proven on countless times how effective you can be to advance policy and to advance thinking, and so that's why we are here. So I think that if one can change behavior in the long term, that's going to solve this. We are just trying to stop the, to put the gates in place, but it's not going to solve it. Yeah.
It is. I guess there's been relatively less attention to working directly with police forces, Interpol, and international intelligence, at least that I'm aware of. What is the appetite for direct work with the police department? Because a lot of, it's true that the poachers are the wildlife authorities are on the front lines, but a lot of the staging happens outside the parks. And so what is the appetite for that involvement directly with police department? The development community has not historically done a lot of work with security and police. Do you think that's changing, and will it change?
Yeah, it's definitely changing. It's changing rapidly, not quick enough. You do see collaboration with Interpol. You do see joint security clusters meeting. There's a meeting of South and Eastern Africa of customs and immigration. So there's definitely structures that's now happening and meetings taking place that didn't take place 5 years ago. So it's definitely changing. The appetite sometimes is not that great, unfortunately. We were just speaking about it, and sometimes it's maybe that mistrust of making sensitive information available, and potentially to be embarrassed, because now you are opening up your book, so to say, and maybe you can show that you actually weren't effective. So conversely, instead of trying to find a solution or trying to help, be focused, delivery orientated, they look to themselves. So there's not often that great an appetite, but I do think that can also change if you do it in the right approach, in the right manner, that is respectful.
One thing that we do is TFCA development. So anything that affects the Transfrontier Conservation Area in a positive way or in a negative way interests us. So if you look, for example, at the water sector, water sanitation, energy waste, sustainable housing, community development, all of these things affect the Transfrontier Conservation Areas in a positive or negative way. So what often happens is we're not implementing agents, say, for example, for the water sector. We're not water scientists. But it's very good to have colleagues and contacts with the water sector, with the energy sector, with sanitation, community development, et cetera, because all of those issues affect what goes on in these transfrontier conservation areas. So though we are not energy experts, we've got some energy expertise, it's nice to partner with people who have that skill. So for example, we don't do leopard implementation. We don't deal with leopard as a species, but we had a donor contact us and say, can you do something with leopard? We want to give you money. So we hired another agency to come and do the implementation for us because that affects the TFCA. So all of these different sectors that you guys are involved with, there's potential partnerships there.
Well, just a word about something which we did not underline, but I think it's worth to be underlined, is why all this vulnerability of our youth, how they are easily recruited to join the crime world. The main issue is poverty. These are youth who do not have sound employment or other ways of living. And these are being paid lots of money compared to the money which they have. If you have zero and someone comes and gives you $20,000, you easily accept the job. If you don't expect any other way of living. That's why it's very important, as I spoke about the communities, to go through this community development. It means to give capacity to the women, to the youth, to sustain a good standard of living. So this is very important. That's why I was saying the first defense line again of our nature, of our environment, are the people living in that area themselves. So, but they have to be given that capacity. So this is, if we were enumerating all the pillars of our work, this would be, for me, the main pillar, because then you have all this army to fight against those who think that they are powerful.